Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Shiza from Center for Corporate and Community Development, University Tunku Abdul Rahman, Utah. Today, we are presenting a webinar titled Music and Technology by Professor I.R. Dr. Lee Zilwei. Prof. Lee is the president of Tunku Abdul Rahman University College, TAUC, co-chairman of KLESF Steering Committee, and the secretary of Malaysia Mental Literacy Movement Committee. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box in the Zoom control panel. Prof. Lee will bring them up during the Q&A session at the end of this webinar. For Utah students and staff, please sign in your attendance in the link posted in the chat box. Without further delay, let us return the time over to Prof. Lee.
Thank you. Very good morning to all of you. Let me share my slide first. Okay. I hope you can see my slide. Okay. Very good morning to you. As mentioned just now, my talk today is on the music and technology. I must first of all mention that I'm not a musician. I'm not an artist. I'm not a music industry one of the members of the music industry. I'm just someone who loves music. At the same time, I also am an engineer. I'm also an engineer, so I know a little bit about technology as well. So therefore, I hope today for this talk, it is just a casual kind of a sharing of my views and thoughts about music and technology in a very layman term. So I don't claim myself to be experts in any, specifically on music or any audio engineering or technology. I'm not that. I'm actually, by profession, I'm actually a telecommunication engineer. Okay. So this is the outline of my talk today, which is I will very briefly discuss and talk about the music and society in general, how music started in human history. And I will just also touch a little bit on the human auditory system. That means our hearing system. What are the limitations of that as well? Okay, and after that, I will move on to talk about the music industry and technology evolutions. I will pay more attention to what has happened for the past 100 and 200 years, since the industrial revolution started in the 18th century. And I think then after that, I will focus more on the impact of the technology on the industry itself, especially for the past 100 to 200 years. What has happened in technology and how it actually has impacted the industry. And of course, at the end, I will also give my view on some of the how the technology development will have an impact or influence the industry, the music industry, and the outlook of the industry in the future, right? The commercial outlook of it. So this is very my own personal view, based on my observations, so it's not going to be a very in-depth kind of analysis or research report, that kind of thing. So it's more of a general kind of a sharing. Okay, if we talk about music, I'm sure that all of us know what is music, right? If you look at the Wikipedia, this is how music is being defined. All right, music is an art, form and cultural activity whose medium is sound organized in time. Okay, so this is how it is being defined in Wikipedia. but we all know what is music, right? When we hear a piece of music, we know that it's music. And when we hear something else, some other audio signals, we probably think that that is noise, right? Okay. So, and music has a long history, right? It as as long as early as human civilization started, okay, and interestingly, when human civilization started, music started as well. And if you look into the history, especially the early histories of human civilizations, you will notice that it started even as early as the time that then when our ancestor was still um, living in a cave, for example, right? So I have searched around and I found that one of the uh, earliest piece of music was actually recorded in the in during the ancient Greek time, and it is on a papyrus, piece of um, that we could detect. So I would probably just show you the one of the website that I found. Very interestingly, someone tried to play back the musical notes, right, of this ancient piece of music. So I will just uh, share with you the uh, can you see the screen? I hope that the website and they will try to play back the music.
Solon sona sodeta casta lidon.
So this is an example of so-called they try to recreate the music based on the what they could found. And this is another piece of music that was, of course, now it's actually performed by um, people of today, but it's actually a piece of ancient music. Right. Okay. So um, when humans started to create music, um, it is a way of communications. It is a way of identify yourself within the group, right? So it's actually a group or community identity. So it is not just language for communications. Music also play a very important role in communications, right? So I'm sure that you would notice ever since the ancient history of human until today, there are all forms of music that has been created by human, right? Okay. By the way, of course, music is there are some living beings like birds probably also create music as well to attract mates and for courting purpose. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, we will focus on what music for human beings, right? Okay. So of course, we have created various kinds of musical instruments, and all these musical instruments has evolved over the years, and but whatever it is, whatever piece of music that we enjoy listening to, if you analyze it in terms of how it is being propagated, right, and how we perceive it and so on, it is basically wave signal, right? It's actually wave, and or it's actually a kind of audio signal, right? Now, an audio signal is basically just for us to be able to detect and listen to it. It is just a series of air compressed air, right? That that actually generated from the source, could be a speaker, all right, or any other source of audio signal, and that propagate through the air, and somehow it impart on the eardrum of our auditory system, and when we that impart on the our eardrum and so on, so that is eventually created into the signals in your nerve systems, and therefore that will be when you reach the brain, then that is actually how we perceive audio signals, including music as well. Okay. So the kind of audio signal that we can detect using our auditory system, it is quite limited if you look at it from a technical point of view, in terms of the frequency range. Typically, we can hear from a range around 200 hertz all the way until about 220 kilohertz of the frequency. And if you consider the kind of frequency that we are experiencing, in our environment, this is a very very narrow range of the frequency that we can hear, right, through our ear. And well, this is the kind of capability that we have. Anything beyond or below that, or anything higher than the 20 kilohertz, would not be so easily detected by our auditory system. But nevertheless, that is good enough for ordinary men like us to enjoy music, right? And of course, in the animal kingdom, there are many other species that can actually detect a much wider range of frequency compared to us. I'm sure you heard about that. Okay, but this is the limitations, or this is the coverage our auditory system can have. Of course, it will also change according to age. So if you grow older, the range will be narrower, unless you get some kind of the hearing aid, right, to help you to compensate for any of your inadequacy of your hearing system, right? But anyway, in general, it's about 20 hertz to up to about 20 kilohertz, right? So now there are all kinds of audio signals around us in our environment, right, in the natural world, and also generated by people, or by the living beings in the surrounding, right? But we as human, we can actually detect, and we can actually recognize that an audio signal is considered a music, or it is noise, or any other irrelevant, in terms of enjoyment and entertainment, right? So so we are talking about a music melody, right? A melody that that somehow it make us comfortable to listen to, right, or enjoyable. So if you look at Wikipedia, what is music melody? It is about, I mean, according to the definition, is that a melody is, or also a tune or voice or line, is actually a linear succession of musical tone that listener perceive as a single entity, right? So for example, Mozart, his piece of music will sounds very attractive, right, to us, and we enjoy listening to it, right? But if you listen to other kinds of the audio signal, like for example, okay, if you listen to this, for example, I'm just going to to Spotify now to play a piece of Mozart music. So that is a melody, an audio signal that you enjoy as and classify as music, right? Okay. But if you listen to this, so this is a recorded audio from actually at the beach, I think, at the ocean, out of the ocean, right? Okay, so the thing is this: you can recognize very easily that one of it is music, and the other one is just white noise. I mean, in engineering, we call it white noise, right? It's just a piece of audio signal that is covering a wide range of frequency in a very random manner. So it's called white noise, right? And of course, you would enjoy what the piece of music by Mozart, but you certainly may not enjoy very much of the white noise, right? But there are still people that will listen to white noise. It's not so much about enjoyment or entertainment. It's more of actually making some. I heard some people actually have to listen to this kind of white noise in order to make them sleep better or to make them sleep faster, right? But anyway, this is just sharing. So our perception of music is physiology. That means involve our auditory system, what our the biology of the physiology of our body, but more importantly, it's also the cultural factor, right? The cultural factor of that, whether we like certain kind of music or we like certain kind of sound and so on, is also has to do with the cultural aspect, right? Now, if you talk about the music industry, right? Now, music industry is actually a big industry. First of all, it is a big industry, and it is also an industry that has a long history, right? It consists of individual or organization that make money or earn money by writing songs and musical compositions, creating and selling recorded music and sheets of music, and presenting concerts, as well as the organization that aid or train and represent and supply music creators. So in other words, we are talking about from the creativity, right? The creative part of the to create music, productions of the content, performance, delivery and distributions, and consumption, right, of the music. So it's a whole value chain we are talking about here for the music industry. And as mentioned just now, it has a very long history, and the music industry basically started when we have the when the Industrial Revolution started, right, for us. Now, the question is, how does technology, right, influence or impact the music industry? This is what I want to share with you all, and I will bring you all through the some of the key milestones in technology and also in technology development, and how this some of this major or disruptive technology that actually change or influence the music industry. Now, as you know that we have gone through a few rounds of this so-called Industrial Revolution. Started with the first revolution in the 18th century, followed by the second and the third, and many people are saying that we are now at the fourth Industrial Revolution, right? And every time you go through this era or period, there are some changes brought about by technology to the music industry. Now, let me start off by sharing with you these two artists or performers, singer. One is, I think on the Adele, I think you all know who she is. She's one of my favorite singer today. Elizabeth Billington is a very popular concert artist back in the 18th century and early 19th century. She was the most well-known opera singer, right, during that period of time. Okay, and Adele, I'm sure most of you know. She's, as I say, she's one of my favorite singer nowadays, and one of the favorite song I like of her is this one. I'm sure that you have heard of it.
Hello, it's me. I was wondering if after all...
Sorry, I won't play the whole piece of music. Okay. Elizabeth Billington, of course, she lived in the time during the time when there was no music recording, right? Technology. So there was none of her voice has been recorded during her time, but somehow the artist later on actually recorded one of the songs that she sang during her time. All right, so I will just share with you. Okay, so I won't play the whole piece. But anyway, you can go and search around. You can find her music, the songs that she has performed before. But interestingly, is that when she was at the peak of her popularity among the society in England, in UK, those days, she was actually wanted everywhere in the country. And the theater had to actually fight for her to perform at their theater. The theater operators were fighting for her appearance in their theaters, and every time she performed, of course, you know that the traditional old theater that you have a capacity. Not many, probably in hundreds the most, right? So she had to actually basically, at one point she even had to, according to what I read, she had to actually move from one theater to another theater, in order to satisfy everyone, right? So it was actually a very, very taxing and very challenging period for her in order to fulfill the needs and the expectation of fans. Right. Coming to Asia, I'm sure you probably have heard of the Shin. She's one of the very famous artists during the early of last century. I mean, belongs to my grandmother's generation. My grandmother would have been 100 years old by now if she's still alive. Anyway, Shin was one of the, according to what I understand, is that she was one of the very famous artists in the those early last centuries. So this is how she sounded like when she was alive. Notice that the recording was not good. It's actually her own original music piece, right? I'm sure you've heard about this song before, performed by artists later on. But this is the original one that she sang during her time. And today, one of my favorite artists is WONGFU. She's not that, she belongs to probably a generation like me, of course, we all know that she was very famous during her time in the 90s, right? So this is one of my favorite pieces. So this was a very famous song, and it went to the charts in Hong Kong and in Far East. Okay, so but I'm not here to actually share with you my preference of music. It's more of actually telling you or comparing with making some comparisons between artists of the past and artists of today. All right. Now, before we go into more detail, let me just start off by what are the key technology, right, that have influence or relevant to the music industry. Now, if you look at the history, phonograph is the key technology that first changed the music industry. Phonograph, as we know, was actually first invented by Thomas Edison, and that invention subsequently brought us to the audio recording technology that actually enable music to be recorded, and once you can record the music, you can then distribute, and therefore you can share with a much bigger base of audience. And this is one of the key turning point for the music industry, and it was due to the inventions of the phonograph, the audio recording technology. Okay, and this has a tremendous impact during its period of time when it first started. And of course, if you look at this slide, this is how you know the music recording technology has evolved in the last 2 centuries. All right, started with a very direct way of recording, very crude way of recording your sound. The sound is by just you know, like this by just speaking directly to the microphone, as you've seen on the slide. And then the some of the players that have evolved over the years until what we've seen today, not today, until the recent past, right? Not long ago, we have the cassette and CD player. I'm sure those, but unfortunately, the younger ones probably are not familiar with some of this technology, because this is something of the past by today's standard. Okay. Now, I want to make a comparison here. I'm sure you know Michael Jackson, right? Okay. Elizabeth Billington, as what I mentioned just now, she was a very famous artist in the 18th century. Michael Jackson has, based on what I checked last week, he has recorded 48.9 million of sales of the records, right, for his music. That means he, the industry has recorded 48.9 million of units sold for his albums, right, his recording. Elizabeth Billington unfortunately lived during the time when there was no music recording technology. She has to perform live. So if you just take 48.9 million that Michael Jackson could reach out to, assuming each of his cassette or CD that's been sold reach to one audience, then if we allow Elizabeth Billington to attempt to achieve the same number of audience, assuming she can perform she can perform to 1,000 audience a day, 365 days a year, then she will take 134 years to reach to 48.9 million audience. So this is this is how the music recording technology has changed the music industry. Of course, Michael Jackson would have earned much more as compared to Elizabeth Billington because he could sell more records, right, than Elizabeth Billington. Of course, Michael Jackson would have to share with many of the other players right, in the music industry, the recording companies, his producer, and so on, right? So it's a whole team of people there. But same thing, Elizabeth Billington of course, will get paid for each performance that she make. But in general, the reach out or the coverage for this artist is a huge difference. Michael Jackson, we are talking about global base of audience and fans, whereas Elizabeth Billington is just limited and localized in her case. It's even localized just within the London area where she was based on. Okay, so so this is the big difference between the two artists of different era, right? One is 1980s, the other one is 1800s. Okay. Now, as I say, Michael Jackson has this music recording technology plus the distribution, right? The distribution's channel in the music industry, and that entire value change, or that actually helps him to become a global famous artist. Whereas Elizabeth Billington was very limited to just a live performance in a concert hall, like what you can see here, right? So this is one example of how technology have changed the music industry. Okay, the second one that I also want to highlight to you is that the radio technology. Now, radio technology started in the radio technology was invented in late 19th century, and it became widely deployed for mass public starting from the early 20th century, right? Last century. So by 1920s and 1930s, it has become a kind of the way of communications and sharing of informations, right? Over the air with the general public. So you begin to see that many households would be able to actually buy radio set, right? Radio receiver. Okay, started in the early last century, and this brought another change to the music industry, right? Before that, there was, although you have the phonograph technology, music recording, but it was still very much limited to the upper class of the society. Or if you want to enjoy live music, you got to buy a concert ticket, which was during those days, it was still a very expensive kind of experience, and you have to pay a lot to get into the theater, and it is only for the upper class of the society. But with the inventions and the wide adoptions of the radio broadcast technology, right, and the radio receivers into household, it became music then become a really entertainment that is for the mass public. So it all started, and people can actually enjoy music over the air, right, through the broadcast technology. Okay, so radio broadcast has another impact on the music industry, and it actually widened the coverage of the music, and also for artists, right, the performers, to be able to actually entertain the audiences. Okay, so before radio time, you still depends on live performances, right? But with the radio technology, it is no longer live performances, but you can actually perform. Of course, you can perform live, but it's actually being broadcast over the radio network, or you can actually play back the music that has been recorded in the vinyls or whatever records that you have, and you can then broadcast the music through the radio broadcast stations and the network, or all the antenna, right? Radio broadcast antenna all over a wide region, right? And the radio receiver become more and more affordable as time goes, and you're talking about mass coverage. Okay, so this is another key development. And of course, after the World War II, the recording technology for music keep evolving, and by the 60s, we begin to see that they were more compact kind of the music recording cassettes, right? Compact cassettes that started to emerge in the 1960s, as compared to the vinyl records that we had early on. Okay, and this, of course, will make even more convenient for the user, right, and listener to play back music. Okay, and subsequently, there were other developments that follow in the 80s, when we first saw that music could actually be recorded in compact discs, and that actually marked the beginning of the digitizations of music, right? And this, later on, I will share with you, also have a very big impact on the industry. And after that, there was this emergence of the MP3 players, or what we call as a mini players. So we have the compact disc, Walkman, the Discman, and then after that, MP3 players. And subsequently, at the turn of the century, right, the last century to this century, you begin to see that there are some smart devices that's emerging. Started with iPod, and then the iPhones, and then all the smartphones, right, that emerged, and until what we see today. But of course, during that period of time, it's also one of the key development is actually the internet, right? Internet became widely available for the general public in the 90s, and that started another round of the what do you call it, the revolutions, right, to the music industry, which I will share later on. So just now, as I mentioned, in the 1980s, when this compact disc was invented as a technology to record music and distribute music, that marks the beginning of music digitizations. And this music digitizations started in the 80s, and it has a very deep impact until today, right? Now, before that, music was actually recorded and distributed in cassettes, in vinyls, and in LPs and so on, which are analog in nature. That means that it will degrade in terms of the music fidelity. I wouldn't say quality, but fidelity. That means how close it is, the copy to the original music piece, right? As compared to compact disc and whatever the later technology, where it is digitized. So when you copy the music or distribute the music, there's no degradations, right, in terms of the fidelity of the music. Okay, so this has a deep impact on the industry, right? I will discuss on it now. Okay, now if you look at the top selling artists in the history, right? Top selling artists in history. I just take a look at the latest one that was put up in the Wikipedia. You find that the top one is the Beatles. By the way, for those young ones, the Beatles was very famous during the 60s and the 70s, right? And they have sold 600 million, right? This is recorded one, claim sales, right? Followed by Elvis Presley, right? 500 million. Followed by Michael Jackson, 400 million. Elton John, 300 million. Madonna, 300 million. Led Zeppelin, 300 million. Rihanna, 250 million. And Pink Floyd, 250 million. Now, you look at all these names. If you are someone who were born this century, not last century, you probably may not have heard many of them, right? These are all like, belongs to the last century, right? The question is that seems quite funny that or quite strange that the one that really sold or the top in terms of selling are those that belongs to the earlier period, of the I mean the about what 20, 30, 40 years ago, right? Some of them. Okay, so and if you look at the top selling album, right? You look at it, the one that is top in the list is actually Michael Jackson's album Thriller. I still remember this one is 1980s, when I was still in the secondary school. This is everyone knows this, right? I mean the Michael Jackson's album, and then followed by AC/DC, Meat Loaf, and Whitney Houston's, and Pink Floyd, Eagles, Bee Gees, and again, these are all artists that was the album that was actually released a long time ago, right, in 80s and 1970s of last century. Okay, so you may wonder how come it is like that. Is it because that the oldie musics are more enjoyable or more popular than the contemporary pop music? Of course, the music industry is a very complex industry. It's actually being shaped and influenced by all kinds of socio-economic factors all the time. But I would argue that one of the key factor is actually technology. So if you look at it from a technological point of view, you can probably explain why is it that what we've seen just now in the earlier two slides, why it happened in this way. Now, if you look at this diagram here, which shows the progressions or the changes over the years in terms of the kind of technology that we use or mechanism we use for the distribution of music. Started with vinyl, tape, CD, right? And then MP3. Then you have the P2P, peer-to-peer sharing, streaming, right? And what we see today is streaming. If you look at it, right, the sales of the physical units, that means the physical sales of music, right? We're talking about records, right? Albums. It tops during the 80s and the 90s, right? It went up tremendously until it reached the peak around late 80s and early 90s, right? And then it started dropping, coming down. Now, and you can see that it was during this period of so-called music digitizations period that you see the decline in the sales of the physical album for music. And during analog time, sales were going up, right? Okay. So this actually tells us one thing, that digitizations of the music actually almost in a way, it actually have affected the music industry very badly at one point in time. If you can recall, especially during the time when we have this MP3, and also I'm sure some of you would have heard of Napster. It's actually one of the P2P that started the peer-to-peer sharing of music. So MP3 actually, in a way, almost killed the music industry. Put in a layman's term, because the reason is because that you must understand, first of all, the recordings of the music and so on, right? This is one example of how music is being recorded. So I won't touch too much detail on this one. But if you look at the whole music industry until the recent past, this is how it's being produced and distributed, right, to the final user. And the technologies to digitize music, right, and distribute music actually affected this music industry and almost bring the music industry down to a very low point at one point in time. Now, I give you the example here. Now, if you take one of the very famous artists in the last century, Elvis Presley. Now, Elvis, if you take those days, when it was during analog time, people take the Elvis cassette and duplicated and sell. Right, we're talking about piracy here, right? Music piracy. And every time you make a record of that, to a cassette, the quality actually degrade, right? The fidelity is no longer as good as the original one, right? But of course, those pirated copy was actually sold at a very low price as compared to the original one, right? But when the music was actually digitized into a compact disc, that actually started off this online sharing of the music in digital copy. And whenever you copy, it is actually exactly the same copy as the original one. And this MP3 and the online distributions, the peer-to-peer sharing, right, P2P sharing, almost brought this music industry down at one point in time. All right, so digitizations of music have a very deep, very serious impact at that point in time, in the late 90s and the early 2000s. Okay, so once again, as I said just now, Michael Jackson was very lucky. During his time in the 80s, it was actually cassette and CD, right? And he could actually achieve 48.9 million. But today, if you look at all the recent top-selling artists, they are in this era of after 2000, and they are not selling album physical copy as much as artists of the past. So that's the reason why that those hard copy, physical copy of sales of physical copy belongs to the last century, artists of the last century. Okay. But of course, today we have other new technology that came and then bring a lifeline to the music industry, especially for the past 10 years. And this is internet. Now, internet, in a way, have impacted the music industry, good or bad, right? The bad thing is that, as I said just now, distributions, sharing, piracy, become very rampant when internet started and music was digitized through this P2P sharing, right? Napster was the one that pioneered all this P2P sharing of music. And of course, internet also bring good things to the music industry in the sense that it brought us to what we are now experiencing today, where music are being streamed and people are paying music on some of this music streaming platform like Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, and etc. Right? Our Apple Music, right, and etc. Okay, so so what have happened is that if you compare an artist today, Adele, I take Adele as an artist of today versus artists of the 1980s, Madonna. Madonna was a very famous artist during my time when I was a teenager. Artists of today got to do live performances. Sorry, need to actually produce albums so that they have enough songs to sing in live performances, right? Madonna in the 1980s performs mainly to actually to increase the sales or enhance the sales of her albums. So Adele don't really sell as many albums as Madonna in the 1980s, but she still need to produce albums so that she can then have songs of her own to sing in her live performances. Madonna produced album and then go for tour, having concert here and there, but the purpose is more of actually to drive the revenue for her album sales, right? Okay, so you can see the irony of this. We started with this Elizabeth Billington, that depend 100% of live performances in order to generate income for herself. And then later on with the era of Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, Madonna and all this, in the last century, they sold a lot of albums, and they will then do some live performances and so on, but it's more of actually promoting the sales of their album. But today, an artist like Adele, produce album not so much about sales, physical sales, but it's more of actually having the songs, that then of course you can then stream it through the streaming platform like Spotify and so on, or for her to perform in live so that you can generate more income. Okay, so I put all these three artists together. Elizabeth Billington of the 1800s, 1980s Madonna, and Adele today. You can see that Elizabeth Billington have to actually perform live only, right? There was no records sold. Because there was no technology, and forget about streaming. There was no internet then. Madonna in 1980s get most of her income from record sales, right? Once a while she will perform live. That is to boost up the sales of the records. And streaming was not there yet, right? At that time, that is pre-internet era, right? Today, if we take Adele, I probably will earn more from streaming, likely to earn more from streaming, and she has to perform in order to also generate some income. And her record sales is not really the main source of income, right, for her. Now, there are other technology related to music today. I'm sure you all know Bluetooth, right? Bluetooth is another technology that at the end user side, which actually have also influenced the music industry. It makes music to be even more personalized. That means that we started with this Discman, Walkman, right, for your mini personal player, and now with Bluetooth technology and the Bluetooth earphone and so on, it makes music even much more personalized. Of course, 5G is there. Anyway, by the way, you don't need 5G to stream music. 4G is more than enough, right? Of course, Wi-Fi and all the smartphone operating system. These are all the technology that is also which are influencing the development of the technology. So, what is next for music industry, right? What is next for music industry? First, we must understand that the internet and the smartphone technology has brought about this new life to the music industry, which is the music streaming business, and it is growing. It has been growing for the past few years, and it's going to grow, continue to grow. All right, so no doubt about that. But what about the other aspects of the music industry? Right, as we mentioned just now, from the creativity, content productions, to distribution, marketing, and so on. Are there any technology at the moment now, or any future trend of technology development that will have impact? My own opinion is that yes, it's going to have. First of all, the electronic technologies, right? It will continue to improve. Internet technology is going to be even it's already widely available, and of course now in terms of speed and quality, right? Accessibility, and also a lot of media platform, right? Social media platform which has been invented or created, which are related or for music distribution and so on, or popularizations of music, right? Now, all this thing will actually liberalize the music industry, right? It will actually make more people able to actually enter into creativity aspect, or content production aspect, or even at distribution and revenue, marketing, and so on. So in other words, the barrier of entry into any of these aspects of the music industry has been lower, right? Second is that it will continue to globalize, but at the same time, it's actually localized and personalized as well. That means, in other words, it will make music, whether it's creations or content productions and so on, to be more targeted at local market, but at the same time, you can reach out to the global market as well, because marketing it or selling it, it is through the global logistic hubs, global logistic network, right? And later on, I will also share with you that increasingly music will be also very much personalized to individual, right? As what we are now seeing in the streamings of music to our own personal likes, right? Okay. So, like for example, if you take the Spotify, right? This is a snapshot of my Spotify account in my phone, and whenever I choose certain kind of music, or I search certain kind of music, the Spotify, have better understanding or more understanding of me, and therefore it will be able to actually gather more music of the same type, that will make me enjoy more. So your music preference, right, will be they will be able to actually gather more data about you, and the more you use the apps and so on, and it will be very much highly personalized, and they will be profiling you even more and more. Okay, so there is underneath all this is that there are a lot of data being collected from you, right? You and me, and there are a lot of computing happening at the background, and there are certain elements of artificial intelligence involved there as well, so that they can make a more accurate profiling and more satisfying kind of music experience for you to enjoy. Okay, so this is one aspect that will continue to improve and grow, right? So it's going to be highly personalized and intimate experience and services for all music lovers. The other thing is that because of the gathering of all the data, right, of you, how the way your habits of enjoying music and so on. It can even extend to the possibility that you may be able to actually find your soul partner. Soul partner, I'm not talking about it can be physical, and it can be also virtual, right? So the more that the music platform understand you, probably they will be able to actually match you to someone else, or even match you to a virtual soul partner, right? So get ready, that in the future you may actually have a virtual soul partner offered by one of the streaming provider or so on, right? Okay. Now, as on the creativity side, now we always say that creativity is human creativity, lah. It's quite unlikely that you can actually have an artificial intelligence to be creative, right? But increasingly, this is not the case anymore. It is whatever that a lot of scientists and technologists are working on at the moment now. Some of them is actually are towards creativity, in which that it is involving some kind of AI, right? If not entirely by AI, but some kind of involvement of AI, in which that it may be a human and AI kind of a partnership, right? So I just share with you, okay, there are some reports saying that well, perhaps this is how it will the industry is going to go forward, in terms of moving or involving some kind of AI in the creative aspect of music creations, right, and content productions. So I just share with you some of the very one of the website I could find that claim to have this AI kind of generated of music, right? So I went to the website, and then I just tried to create one with my own input, right? So this music was actually created according to the website, the company involved here. It's called Aiwa. According to them, is that this is actually created by an AI system based on the input I put in as the. So it's sort of like a AI and human partnership in creating the music. So let's listen to this music that was created between my input and the artificial intelligence system of that company. So it was a 30-second music that was created based on some input from me. Okay. How they did it and so on, I do not know the detail, right? I leave it to you to go and explore further. But this is increasingly something that is possible nowadays, right? So why is there an advantage of doing so? Yes. I mean, from my point of view, I think yes. Now, first of all, is that you can actually create music that is more personalized to you. Okay. And secondly, is that if you are a songwriter or music writer, right, you can actually extend into a new possibility where your current creativity capability is could be limited, right? So with the partnership with the AI artificial intelligence system, probably you can extend your creativity coverage. So you can actually create much more diverse kind of music, as an artist, as an artist. But again, I'm not an artist, I'm not a music creator, but I would think that possible is one of the areas that our musicians can actually explore in the future, right? Some kind of a partnership with the AI systems. Okay. So that's all I want to say about what my thoughts and views about music and technology. I'm now open to any question. It's about we have about half an hour or so, about 25 minutes. Let me just stop sharing first. Okay, so earlier on there was some questions that was posted to me that I probably can take a look at some of the questions, or anyone wants to ask now. I'm more than happy to give my view. Let me see. Okay. 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 Someone asked about the automations of the musical instruments, right? I think the I mean, as far as I know, lah, right, musical instruments, especially if you play a violin or play a piano, I think that I'm not an artist. Again, I'm not a music performer, but I understand is that when you perform a piece of music using a piano or violin or whatever instruments, it has certain elements of your own personal, your styles and your personality and so on. So it is not just a simple of pressing the button down on the keyboard, of the piano and all this. Is also about the. So I think it's not much more complicated, right? In terms of course, we have seen illustrations of robotic performance of using instruments and all this, but I think that one I would think there's still a long way to go, lah, right? For say automations of musical instruments, playing of the instruments. But I suppose that it can happen in the future, but I would still think that a partnership between the artificial intelligence and human is still the key factor for a successful, whether it's performance or creations of music. Yeah. There's someone talking about learning of music, and I think learning of music for human beings, of course, a lot of tools nowadays will be enable us to actually learn better, right? But again, I am not someone who have learned a lot about music in terms of the theory part or the performance of or using an instrument. But I understand is that nowadays there are a lot of digital tools that will make our learning of some musical instruments or music concepts and theory much more interesting and diverse, and therefore can be more effective, right? Okay. Of course, my email I will sorry, my presentation slide I can share with you all later on in a PDF versions. We'll put it up on the website of the MMLM. Okay. Let me see. Okay. And early on that I was just looking at my message. There was some questions early on posted to me. Okay. Someone asked about the someone asked, do you think that the way music is being broadcasted today has changed a lot compared to the 20th century? Certainly, yes, lah. As what I said just now, right? Those days was actually mass broadcast, right? Over the radio, which radio technology is still available today. But I think nowadays we have more than that, right? It's more diverse. and a lot of music streamings are going on nowadays. So it becomes the norm of today. Okay, and in fact, when you ask young children, about music, they will say that just go to Spotify or any other or Apple Music, to play music. So there's no such concept of this cassette player or CD player. That one belongs to the last the previous generation already, right? So distribution of music has changed a lot, for the past 20-30 years. All right. Okay. Yeah. So I think that I also have a question that do you think is impossible to make music without using any technology at this age and time? And how do you think the synergy between music and technology will be able to help the in various industry? Now, I think in whatever industry, the technology will certainly bring some changes or new possibility, or put certain jobs or activity into obsolete or risk or at risk now. But human has been able to evolve, right? So if you today you say that certain new technology will actually bring an end, bring the end to say certain jobs or work functions. I don't think so. It will, because as human beings we will evolve. Just like those days when radio or TV, right, as a new technology was introduced in the last century, a lot of people say that here is gone already. This theater, the business of theater, right, the concert theater and all this will be gone. But it's not true. It didn't turn out that way. TV broadcast and radio broadcast did not actually end the life of theaters. It is still doing very well nowadays, especially in the Western world. Maybe not so much in Malaysia, but in Western countries, in fact, the COVID-19 has actually affected this business so much that they can't wait to actually start the business. And once they started in recent 2-3 months, the audience went back to theaters and they enjoy the live performances of all these artists. But as again, this is limited in terms of the scope of the coverage, right? But there are still people who really enjoy this, and this was not disrupted, as what predicted, right, by people those days when TV and radio broadcast, came to the society. Okay, so same thing here. Music industry was brought down, very badly during the 90s, right? The late 90s and early 2000s. But then subsequently, the technology that actually caused the downturn also brought upturn, right? Brought new hope and new life to the music industry. And as we see today, that our musicians, our artists are actually earning more money from the streaming of their work, their artwork, their music, more than selling the physical album, right? And of course, that also help them in terms of live performances where they can also generate income as well. Okay. All right. Someone want to ask question. Manzo, is it? If you want to turn on your mic, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Go ahead.
you. Thank you, Professor Way. I really don't have a question. It's all praise. I'm so pleased to have been part of this talk. And I am one of the science education promoter, mainly the STEM, and following an inquiry approach. So I'm really delighted that not per se a school teacher or somebody involved in formal teachers training, but I'm delighted to have listened to you because you link the science, the technology, culture, and above all, I think human happiness, an individual's pleasure. And so I'm all praised for this kind of talk. Being a foreign fellow of AET, I am really very, very pleased to have been part of this. I congratulate you and the organizers and the ASEAN Academy of Engineering and Technology. You know probably Professor Academician Datu Lee Cheong,
Yes, yes.
who and myself, we are good friends of Professor Yves Cuvre, who is one of the co-founders of La Main Lapad Foundation in France, who promote inquiry-based science education. And
Thank you.
Yves always begins his talk with the cello that he plays. He's a very good cello player. And he plays the string and then put the question to the audiences and the students as to how this happened, why this, low note and high note, and what is the physics involved in it, and so on. So wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is Manzoor Sumra from Islamabad in Pakistan.
Thank you. Thank you. Right.
I encourage the
Okay. I Okay, someone asked me about the how you evaluate fidelity of music that driven by various technology. Now, when we say fidelity here, we are talking about from engineering point of view, from engineering signal, signal processing, point of view. Fidelity is just comparing whatever that a piece of signal that you have compared to the original source, right? So let's say, for example, you take the album that was recorded by Michael Jackson. So when he went to the studio to record his song, they had the original recording, which was I can't remember what's the term they use, but subsequently they will then make copies of that into the other media in which that they can then distribute and sell, right? So if the music is actually in analog format and not digitized all the way until the user, then over that the whole change from the source to the end user, if you make copies of that a few times, every time you make a copy in analog system, you will actually lose some of the original information in the signal, right, in the music. So therefore, this one we're talking about fidelity, right? So, but if you are digitize it already, then whatever 0 and 1 that was been generated from that piece of music signal, it will be able to copy exactly the same all the way until the end user. All right, so that's what we mean by fidelity of the signal. Okay, but of course, those days, I still remember I read somewhere when CD was actually invented or introduced to the public in the 80s, right, and early 90s. Sorry, in the 80s. In the 80s and early 90s. At that time, a lot of people actually enjoy or listening to music through the cassette player or the vinyl, right? And those were actually analog system. So when CD was actually introduced, a lot of people actually complained that they don't find it comfortable to listen to the CD music. And apparently the reason that later on they found out is because the cassette player and the vinyl player those days, because they're analog system, and the system actually introduced some noises into the music and they play out through the speaker. And that music, that noise, that noises that generated by the system, combined with the music itself, has made people very comfortable already enjoying that music together with the noise. And subsequently, when the music player was digitized already in the CD player, the noise was gone, and people find it very uncomfortable to listen to that music because there was no noise there. So I mean, this is it's just an irony that that actually happened those days, right? But of course nowadays we are all used to it, right? So we listen to the digital version of the music, right? Okay, there's also a question that at that point of view, will you see that the vinyl contain more information relative to our CD and live stream? Well, as I mentioned just now, that the vinyl player, the cassette players, they also will degrade over time, right? So you notice that I've gone through the era of cassette and vinyl, so after some time, your cassette don't really sound so clear anymore, right? Or there was some distortion here and there. No, it's more of a human perception. It's not about information. Because if you are talking about the actual information itself, it is actually listening live from the person in front of you, right? The artist in front of you. Or once it's being recorded, it is no longer the original one, exactly the same copy, right? But it's more or less there, right? So so as I mentioned just now, vinyl records, right, and cassette records of the music, they are analog. So it can actually change gradually, right, over time. Whereas if you digitize the music already and you're streaming online, or you put it in the CD, unless the CD is being scratched, right, or the online live stream is actually you are cut off from the internet, you will be able to listen to the music exactly the same copy as the original one, right? The moment it being digitized, that is the version that you will listen. So it's actually exact the same copy in that sense. Okay. Whether you enjoy or don't enjoy, that depends on individual, right? There are people who really still enjoy listening to vinyl player, right? Whereas some people are okay with the online streaming. Okay. Any more questions or anything you want to share? You're most welcome.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Prof. Lee, there was a question from Chang Bao. Do you think AI will sing in the future and artists becomes obsolete?
Okay, I have this imagination that it may happen in the future. Now, we all like to go to, I think many of us, I mean, human beings, we like to sing, right? It's a matter of whether when we sing the time people enjoy or not, right? Listening to lah. So don't ask me to sing because I'm not a good singer, okay? But I foresee that it is possible in the future, especially for those who like to sing, but then are not really a good singer, right? You may be able to actually partner with some kind of AI system, which will be able to actually complement your shortcomings, right? Let's say, for example, I probably cannot sing high pitch, right? But a good song sometimes, and a very enjoyable song has some high pitch part, that I physically my voice, just my vocal cord can just cannot support that or cannot produce that kind of. So I may be able to actually have a system in which that it will be able to complement my shortcoming, and therefore enable me to actually perform and sing, at least to the listener, that I will sound original. That means it's my voice, but better than what I actually can sing, right? Okay, so it is possible in the future that way, and if it happen, I think that karaoke system of today will evolve into that kind of system that will actually make people even more enjoying, right? Not just listening, but also in performing as well. Hopefully that will happen because I will be the first one to use it if it's available, because I really sometimes I also dream that I can actually sing very good, and very well, and then people really enjoy it. Okay, but unfortunately I'm not, right? So I have to accept the fact that I am not a good singer. Okay, so oh yeah, someone say that I mentioned that, okay, use white noise, right, to assist their sleep. May I know how would you see the role of music and auditory information in assisting human other than entertainment, for example, in rehabilitation program? I I don't really know much about that, but I know that music in different form has been deployed or used or tried out, right, in for certain purposes, especially to influence people's emotion and so on. It is, but then I'm sure there are lots research and been done, to how our brains react to different kind of audio signal. Yes, but I know for sure is that there are people that like to listen to noise in order to make them sleep faster. Right? Otherwise, it won't appear in Spotify, with that kind of music. I know that some people told me before that they were on this kind of audio signals at night when they want to go to sleep. But anyway, it depends on the individual, right? Okay.
I think Mr. Tiong San would like to say something.
It's not clear. Yeah.
Can you hear me now, Prof?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, I just have a added question on AI. You mentioned about AI. So I was wondering whether this AI, do you foresee that AI will totally replace the human creativity in the future?
I personally do not think so. Okay. My reasons is that the AI alone, probably if you just take separate, say AI and then human, maybe an AI can actually create a wider range of music, right, compared to human, because human, it all depends on our own personal experience, I suppose, right? I'm not an artist, but I suppose that our life experience influence our creativity, the kind of things that we can create out, right? But AI, if you expose it to many different things in the world, it can actually have a wider range of so-called experience, right? Okay. But then don't forget that human brain, somehow, unless one day that you can say that the human brain itself can actually be simulated, or emulated by AI 100%, right? Even that also is only one human brain, right? So I would think that partnership will be the future for all. That means that it's not just AI alone or human alone, but it's actually a partnership between AI and human, right?
So in that partnership, who do you think will be taking a more dominant role? Because the way the music has evolved, I think as what you rightly pointed out, you talk about the Beatles, for instance, there is now, because of the technology, there is a revival of their music, which is very strange. You would thought that they would have taken a back seat and all that, but instead, I'm sharing this experience on a personal basis. Like my son, he is actually listening to my generation type music, and he has grown out of his generation type of music, so he has become very strange because of the technology. He was able to do that,
Yeah. I mean, a piece of good melody, whether it can withstand time, you see, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I also enjoy the music that my father used to enjoy, right? Or even my grandmother generation, you see, because
So
it
you're
is a
also
good piece
listening to
of melody.
Elizabeth Bennington.
Yeah. I also enjoy classical music as well, you see, right? So so it all depends on individual, I would say, and going forward, as I said, I mean, there's this AI element that will come in more and more, or even into creativity aspect as well. But take it positively, it's not going to 100% replace human, right? It's going to be better off with a partnership rather than Okay. So, and then the other thing is that because of copyrights and all these requirements, so because nowadays a lot of people are actually creating their own content, they're creating their own video, so they need this music as the background music, right? And the moment you put a piece of music into together with your video, and you put out in YouTube, they will block you, right? Because that one is a copyrighted version, right? So increasingly, there's a need, actually to personalize and your private, creations, music creation. So that's why like people like me, if I need a piece of music for my video, and I don't want to pay copyright for using other people's music, I can actually use some of these tools, to influence the music creations with AI. So in a way, it's actually a partnership, lah, right? So I can create that music and then put it in my own video, and nobody will say that I copy others, right? Because the AI subjected that you prescribe, you pay to the company that created AI system. So then you have the copyright of the music.
Yeah,
right?
but I think this copyright also eventually will phase out because of the immense scope of the music that is able to reach out to the masses, like, I'm sure even people in Africa now would be listening to the Beatles, for instance,
Yeah.
So that
But
is how far the technology has gone.
Yeah, but if they are listening on the streaming platform, provided they subscribe and pay their subscription, so it's actually an income for the artist and the record company, right? So it's in a way, as what you pointed out rightly, that some of these old artists, they're already we thought long gone already, right? But their songs are still selling well. And I mean, one of the latest example is ABBA, right? ABBA just came up with new tracks, and because they see the possibility of reviving their music and therefore offer to the fans and public, I'm quite sure that their latest song will actually sell quite well on the streaming platform, right?
I'm sure there are a lot of ABBA fans out there too,
Oh yes, I'm one of them. I'm one of them.
You're one of them. Okay, another thing to add about your mentioning about AI and the singing thing, I don't know whether you're aware, but it already exists, on an app called WeSing. Have you heard of WeSing? WeSing is by WeChat. It's an app on your phone.
Yeah. I think
you can actually sign on. It's free, and then you can actually choose to sing. Let's say if I choose to want to sing with you, we can link up and then we can sing together. And on that, I think there are apps in there that helps you to reach all those high notes, lah. So maybe you should check it out.
Okay, yeah, you're right. This is part of the karaoke system that will help people to cover all your shortcomings. But right. I think going further, if you involve more of AI into the system, the software system, it can actually even make it even more impressive, in terms of your because the apps that you're talking about, yes, I noticed that my own my mother-in-law is actually using this every day, because she like to sing, and she sing over the phones and she share, and then whenever she get likes from others, then she's very happy, So okay, so I can see these are good things about the latest development. So I'm quite sure that all this company providing this kind of solution, slowly they will actually evolve and they will incorporate more AI into it, and it will actually make us more satisfied, right, with our own singing. Yes. All right.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Prof. Lee, is there anything you would like to cover before we wrap up?
Okay, enjoy music. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you for your attention. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Lee, for this interesting, insightful webinar. Goodbye, everyone. Stay safe.